Good evening, YouTube, Periscope, and Facebook, and Twitter Live. Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon, a retired NYPD detective with 20 plus years in law enforcement. And if you like all things true crime related from a police perspective, please hit that subscribe button down below, hit the notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon when I go live or when I upload another video. And tonight we're going to talk about Tammy Daybell's autopsy and the potential for what was found by the coroner's office and what the district attorney knows and what they have to charge first degree murder against Chad Daybell and first degree criminal. Um, okay, here I am lost for words. Conspiracy. There it is. My head, I had a little bit of a bleep at 57. Conspiracy to commit murder in the first degree. If you're not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And thank you to my Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all of the people who successfully subscribe and follow this community. One of the best communities on YouTube. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I thank you so much. Guys, again, tonight we have two special guests, two fan favorites, two show favorites. Barbara Butcher, New York City medical examiner, chief of staff, retired. She is a wonderful guest, and I will introduce her in a few minutes, and Sergeant Bill Cannon. They will be joining us in a few moments, but I'm going to play just a little clip so this way the folks who are coming in from outside the country and some of the folks who might just be tuning in, just to give a little bit of background. And this is old news, but I want to just play this so you guys can get a better understanding of what we're going to cover here tonight. So just bear with me here as we play this bit of media, and I will be right back on with you guys to talk about it.
Today, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell are expected in court. The pair now faces murder charges in connection to the deaths of Lori's children, JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan.
As we've told you, police found the children's bodies on Chad Daybell's property in Fremont County last year. Our Ricardo Coronado has the latest in our continuing coverage.
Lori and Chad Daybell were indicted on 2 counts of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and grand theft by deception for the deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. Lori and Chad Daybell were also indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow.
These among a slew of new charges, Madison County Prosecutor Rob Wood said Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell face for the deaths of Vallow's 2 children, Joshua JJ Vallow and Tylee Ryan. Family members reported the kids missing in the fall of 2019. Police say they found the children's remains last year at Daybell's property in Salem. According to court documents, prosecutors allege the couple endorsed and espoused religious beliefs to justify or encourage the murder of the children. The couple were also charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder in the death of Chad's late wife, Tammy Daybell.
And Chad Daybell was also indicted on 1 count of first-degree murder in the death of Tammy Daybell.
Madison and Fremont County prosecutors presented the new charges on Monday. Vallow also faces a grand theft felony, with court documents stating she was intentionally collecting Social Security funds for the children long after their deaths. Court documents also showed Chad Daybell is accused of insurance fraud after he collected money from an insurance policy he had on his late former wife. The prosecutors say the grand jury found probable cause for the indictment charges to be presented.
Rob and I have a legal and ethical obligation to protect the defendant's rights to a fair trial. We take this obligation seriously, and we will continue to balance the public's interest in this matter with our legal ethical obligations, including our responsibility to protect the integrity of the facts and evidence.
If convicted, both Vallow and Daybell could face life sentences or even the death penalty. If you have any information on this case, please call the Fremont County Sheriff's Office at 208-624-4482. Ricardo Coronado.
Okay, folks, so there you have it. Just a little bit of background. I wanted to do that for some of the folks who might just be joining. We are only going to be discussing the autopsy results or the potential for what we think was found in autopsy results on Tammy Daybell to bring forward the charges of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on both my guests. Barbara Butcher is a 22-year plus veteran of the legal medical death investigations. She's performed over 5,000 autopsies and 600 plus murder investigations. She's a retired chief of staff at the New York City Medical Examiner's Office. And Sergeant Bill Cannon, who we all know and love, he is here. Manhattan North Homicide Squad Detective Sergeant from the A Squad. He has 27 plus years in the business. Thank you guys for joining. It's a pleasure to have you, Barbara, Bill.
Great to be here.
Barbara, you're still muted.
Thank you, Ron. It's good to be here. And I didn't do 5,000 autopsies, by the way. That was 5,000 death investigations.
There you go. I knew I had something wrong. Thank you.
She'd still be at work if she was doing 5,000.
Yeah, exactly. When I was saying it, I said it didn't sound right. But again, 5,000 investigations are just incredible. So I wanted to give the audience quite a bit of your background. And, again, 57 years old, I start losing it a little bit. Look, in the beginning, I couldn't even bring up the second charge. So yeah, the true crime community is going haywire over this case. Now, this is leading us down several rabbit holes with possibly 6 victims potentially or more between Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. These extreme cult believers have just performed so much evil across the many different states. But tonight we're going to talk about the autopsy. And, Barbara, again, we had a live stream 4 months or 3.5 months ago, and you really went into a lot of the details of what goes on in these autopsies and some of the challenges that medical examiners face once somebody has been embalmed and interned. You want to speak maybe about a little bit of the overview of what could have come back for these severe murder first-degree charges and such, if you can.
Sure. My bet is probably on the toxicology. As you recall, there was an investigation by a local coroner, a coroner's investigator, who reportedly went to the scene and was told by Chad Daybell that his wife had felt a little ill and woke up. He woke up and she was dead. And that was that. And they accepted that story. And that was the end of it. That tells me that most likely there were no any wounds seen. There was nothing external, no gunshot wound, of course, no stab wounds, and probably no marks of strangulation or anything else obvious, because certainly then the funeral directors would have seen that, and that coroner's investigator would have seen that. So therefore, at autopsy, whether or not the person was embalmed, it is possible to get toxicology from the tissues. Embalming washes out a lot of that, of any drugs or poisons that have been used, but there are ways to potentially still get a good toxicology report. So I'm betting that what they found was a substance in her blood or in her the fluid of the eye or urine or bile that was not supposed to be there. In other words, a poison or a drug. And that's what I'm betting on. Yeah,
I mean, that's the general consensus throughout the community, but to hear it from a professional, I mean, like we spoke, this is your business. This is really what you've done for, a great deal of your life. Bill, if you had any experience with, things of this nature where you investigated homicides and you've gone on, up on the stand or on trial where you talk about a person being drugged and then after the fact, autopsy brings this up. I'm sure you've had that in some of the cases.
Yeah, we have had that, but poisoning, and you can even ask Barbara, it's somewhat rare in regards to what we usually see. You don't see very many poisons. That's why I was a little baffled by the definition of first-degree murder in Idaho, which that's what it is. It includes poisoning, which obviously shows intent. You don't give someone poison unless your intent is to end their life.
Now, Barbara, too, a couple of folks put in questions about Tammy was exhumed on December 11th, 2019. She was interned, I believe, in October. So according to my notes, October 19th, she was interned in the ground and then exhumed within 2 months. During that process, they removed her body only for 8 hours, took her to the Utah coroner's office, and then returned her. Is it safe to say that you can complete what needs to be completed in a autopsy within that period of time? Because most folks don't know this.
Sure, absolutely. An autopsy, the actual, the opening of the body, the removal of tissues for samples, a complete inspection, internal and external, only takes about 2 hours, sometimes even less. Of course, when you have multiple gunshot wounds or hidden injuries, like internal injuries, it's going to take a few more hours. But they can do what they need to do. That's all the photography, the complete autopsy, tissue sampling, fluid sampling for toxicology, brain examination. They can do most of that within a space of about 2.5, 3 hours. So that's no surprise at all. It's what comes afterwards that takes such a long time. And that is creating tissue slides, doing fixation of the brain for a full exam, which is forensic neuropathology, and then of course toxicology. And if the body was embalmed, as I said, it's going to be a lot harder to get those samples.
Right.
So that takes weeks, months sometimes.
And here we are in the middle, in the weeks and months to come. March of 2020, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So we do not have the laboratories that do the testing on the fluids and any evidence collected. You want to talk about perhaps what that would be under normal circumstances, time frame wise? Because the prosecutor said we were in the middle of a pandemic and we couldn't even convene a grand jury. But she didn't obviously talk about the job of a laboratory. I don't even know what they're called. So, Barbara, I'm going to sound stupid here, but if you could let the audience know what goes on with this and how many different places potential evidence gets sent out to.
Sure. If I recall correctly, Utah does have its own toxicology laboratory at the medical examiner's office.
They do.
Yeah, they do. So that can be both a blessing and a curse. A blessing in that you have your results right there. You know your team. You know what you can push and what you can't in terms of getting results quickly. But it's a curse in that medical examiners' offices are chronically underfunded. So you're never going to have the kind of staff that you really need to get quick results, which is why so many of ME's offices have taken to sending out the more routine work to NMS or other big national laboratories, and doing the more forensically challenging work, let's say, in-house. So I don't know personally what Utah is doing with their labs or what their turnaround time is, but if they're like every other ME office in the country or coroner's office, they have a long turnaround time because they're underfunded and understaffed. Now, add to that the pandemic, and they were probably working at a skeleton staff in order to protect their employees, so it would take all the much longer.
Yeah, so that's the whole thing here, is that everybody wants answers quickly, and when the true crime buffs are watching this, and family, of course, the family, the friends, the community, everybody was in limbo. People wanted to know what was going on. Bill, I wanted you to talk quickly about what goes on with the investigative branch of this. The homicide investigators, the state, and the feds were on this case. It wasn't just Rexburg PD. They had help from the FBI, forensics, and all of those folks. When you get an autopsy back and you're a homicide investigator, at what point do you make the jump to go to the prosecutor and say, hey, this is what we got? Or are they working along with you at the time?
No, the prosecutor is plugged in every minute in a case like this, and if this does come back to be a poison, they're planning strategy and planning on how to prosecute this, from minute one when they get the results back. But a major investigation like this too, there's so much more evidence than just the physical evidence. The cell phone evidence, to me, in this case, is, even though it's circumstantial, it's like a smoking gun type evidence. It's so strong, putting her brother at the area, their farm, text messages between him and her saying, "Oh, I just shot a raccoon." It was sort of like code word. I'm going to bury it in the pet cemetery. I'm sure that was one of the kids they were referring to. And so the cell phone records, pinging from towers and putting it right at that farm, is such very, very strong circumstantial evidence.
Yeah, and I think it speaks volumes to our computer forensics that we have in the modern technology. A lot of these homicides where it's intertwined, when you have multiple, as we have here, multiple victims. We have two children. One was dismembered and lit a fire and buried in such a heinous fashion, and buried by Chad Daybell, allegedly. Um, the messages back and forth were right in connection with everything that they talked about in all their previous acts. Like, they claim that her daughter was possessed or a demon. There was text messages, we come to find out through the prosecutor, that Chad and Lori messaged each other about Tammy Daybell, that she too was a demon or possessed. So that makes me think that, this is a pattern here, and, they weren't really thinking soundly. They were very extreme in their religious beliefs, but, not many people of sound mind talk about things like this.
No, that's a consistent evidentiary of behavior. Very
Right.
consistent. And juries love that, to hear that,
Yeah. So, I mean, what we see going on right now is we're talking about Lori not being competent for trial. And, that was, another issue that we're not going to go into. But at the end of the day, this is, part of a defense team's dream. This is what they're poking at straws here. And a lot of people are getting upset about it. But, that their job is to defend and uphold the rights of the defendants here. We don't like it, but at the end of the day, that's what we're looking at. And you and myself and Barbara, have seen it from the sidelines, but everybody has to work in together as a team here to make this work, to get a successful prosecution. And at the end of it, we have these two getting carted off, and the judge says, "Take charge." It takes a lot for that to happen, and we could be looking at another year or two before that even goes down. But at the end of the day, I feel that these two evil folks had really bad intentions always, and anybody that got in their way seems to come up eliminated. Look at Tammy Daybell. She reported just days before or a week before that someone took a shot at her in a ski mask. So we come to find out that allegedly that was Alex Cox, who subsequent to that comes up dead from a cardiac event. So, and he was cremated. It's just amazing that.
And didn't Alex Cox also shoot the husband of
Charles Vallow?
Yeah, Lori Vallow.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing is like,
Yeah. I'm talking 6 or more victims here at the hands of these two, sick demons. And I like to call them demons because nobody that is a good person does this. So at the end of the day, we have a lot of people. There's over 1,000 people here in the chat right now. So I am going to, if you guys don't mind for a moment, go over to the chat. In the private chat, Josh sent a question in from Diane Marie. Was embalming done when Tammy passed, or maybe not? It was. I'll answer that. I'll save Barbara the air. The embalming was done. We know that. It's been confirmed. And Barbara did talk earlier about the obstacles that present themselves. But if you want to maybe touch on that, how the go around for embalming, I think the eye. I'll let you.
Yeah, the intraocular fluids. can still, despite being embalmed, they could you can still get toxicology out of there. Other body tissues, very difficult, but it can be done. I'm not a toxicologist. I just work with them and know that some of them can do some real miracle work in finding even trace of poisons. Another thing I should mention is finding a needle mark. When a medical examiner does an autopsy, they look at every inch of skin. If there's one little puncture wound, one little needle mark, they're going to find it. And they will actually dissect down into that puncture mark and try to get little samples in case there's traces of poisons or drugs in there.
Excellent.
And,
Thank you.
and you know, I do want to just mention, Ron, that it wasn't just that the toxicology and autopsy results took so long. It's also that the grand jury took the sum total of the evidence here and considered it and investigated it for quite a long time. And they could not get all that evidence because of the pandemic, and they couldn't be convened. But when they were, the evidence was there, and they came to their decision.
Right. And there's a list that I'll link down below of all of the witnesses that the grand jury spoke with before they came to this indictment. And Barbara, while I have you, there's a second question about autopsy. It comes in from channel member and Patreon supporter Sandy Lee. Thank you, Sandy, for this question. Could Chad and Lori find some poison that does not show up during an autopsy?
That's a great question, especially since if there was a poison that didn't show up during autopsy, we wouldn't know about it because it would have been that effective. However, I have never heard of such a thing. I think that we have medically such a good understanding of body chemistry, what should be there and what shouldn't, that anything out of the ordinary is going to be explored and tracked down. And it would be very, very difficult to find a poison or a drug that didn't show up, that instantly was washed out of the body by our own natural reactions. You know, the liver and the kidneys dissipate those drugs. I can't think of the word. My head is stuck.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I know. What the hell is that word? You know, when you metabolize. Sorry. Okay. Drugs are metabolized in our system and then they are washed away. They disappear. But if you die, metabolism stops.
Right.
So those drugs are left behind.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that great explanation, Barbara. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Andy Crayons, who is also a channel member. This is for you, Bill. Can they pawn it all off on Alex Cox, which is Lori's brother, who's dead? Since he's dead, and can they pawn it all off on Alex Cox since he's dead and can't defend himself? Is there any way to prove who poisoned Tammy if she was poisoned? Bill, I'll let you take that.
Well, you know, you look at what's the totality of the circumstances and all of the things and all of the evidence pointing towards Chad and Lori in this. And, you know, prosecutors use totality of circumstances, the evidence, and juries, they common sense of who could have done it. And if the defense tried to say that Alex Cox did this, well, don't you think Chad and Lori planned and assisted him in doing this if, in fact, he's the killer of the children? They were involved. They have text messages. They have cell phones pinging. They were there when the bodies were buried. And as far as the poison, it would be wouldn't make any sense that anyone else did it other than Chad. Yeah.
And excellent point, Bill. I believe the prosecutors touched very on the outside, you know, they lightly touched this, that they did have electronic communication between Lori Daybell Vallow and Chad Daybell in regards to taking care of Tammy Daybell, because I read that in two separate places, but I went to eastidahonews.com, and Nate Eaton, who was subpoenaed and then the subpoena was withdrawn by the defense, He posted that up, that they had electronic communication, and that was brought out by the special prosecutor and also the the Rexburg prosecutor. I believe both of their names are mentioned in that indictment. But
you know, Ron, if I could just say one other thing, and it's not an element of the crime, but everyone loves to hear it, and that's motive. And they had all the motive in the world, and the jury loves to hear that. Yeah, he wanted to kill his wife because he wanted to be with her and not his wife. You know what I mean? They wanted to get rid of the two kids because they wanted to live in Hawaii together. I mean, the motive is, it's not, as I said, it's not an element of the crime, but juries love to hear it.
Correct. And it's clear and evident. I know, Barbara, I'll answer this one for you. Tara Wells sends in a $5 super chat. Thank you so much for that. I know the answer to this. Assuming Tammy died of poisoning, is it possible to test Alex for the same poisoning even though he was cremated? No. The answer is no. Definitely not. Chad Daybell, it's alleged that he very strongly tried to have his wife cremated. He wanted her cremated, but her family, thank God, her mom and dad, I believe, are still alive. They demanded a funeral where she was viewing, and the family came, and they were pushy about it. There's word on the street that Chad Daybell wanted her cremated, and if he had her cremated, they may have, Barbara, you could chime in at any time, gotten away with this.
Absolutely. As you said, you can't find toxicology in ashes. This possible exception, and this is just theoretical, but heavy metal poisoning, which would be long-term, or radioactive isotopes used as poisons, and that's been done in Russia, as you know. That could show up in a bone fragment because, you know, fire doesn't destroy radioactivity. So there's an interesting idea. But
so that brings us to the many different possibilities of what could have came out of this autopsy. We all just have to now assume. And the thing of it is I brought Barbara on for all of our benefits because she knows the potentials. There's probably a handful of different possibilities here. And I wouldn't even rule out, maybe would they be able to detect some type of asphyxiation or choking if that was it, if anything was broke, a hyoid bone, or I might be delving into an area that you could just spank me and tell me, stop, Ron. But, what do you think, Barbara?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, there is absolutely a possibility of strangulation. Now, some people, when strangling someone, will use a soft pad, even like a turtleneck or a towel, so as to not leave finger marks. Right. And the hyoid bone here fractures, but you don't see that externally. And as we know, there was just a very cursory visit from the coroner's death investigator, who came to the scene, took a brief look, and said, "Oh, everything looks all right." I think she was actually even at the funeral home seeing the body, not at the scene.
Yes.
That's right. She went to the funeral home, took a look, said, "Oh, everything looks good." And he said she was sick. So, boom, it's fine.
See, this just goes to show you how things happen outside of New York City or major metropolitans. We're in the middle of, rural area. So they don't necessarily operate the way Bill and I and yourself are used to. Anybody dies at home, Bill, you can explain to the audience what goes on. Just take them through what your squad would do on just say a natural death or not a natural, just anybody passing away at home. That's not.
Well, a natural death, we look for, medications that the person's taking. We still look in any death, we look whether it's homicide, suicide, or suspicious at all. There's a protocol we go through. But even if we believe that it's a natural death, the medical legal investigators come there and they check out, they do an examination of the body, and that would be Barbara and her crew. They would come there, take the body's temperature, look for things like petechial hemorrhaging, lividity in the body, all of those things. And if it was at all suspicious, they would go to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy.
Yeah.
And certain times the family can request no autopsy if there's religious reasons. But if the death is suspicious, the call is made by the chief medical examiner.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing is, Bill, is we have so many people who pass away at home, right? On the midnights when I worked on patrol, I would always, in the morning when I'd want to get out of there and go home, I would get that call, unresponsive in apartment 22J, elevators out. And we,
I love that one. No one can ever die on the first floor.
Never.
gosh,
Never.
Never.
that's that at that time I go, me,
Yeah.
it's like, but and it winds up being an 18-hour extra day. But yeah, these things are investigated, these things are checked into. I want to look quickly at the chat. Things outside of these major metropolitans, they get handled a little differently. Fuzzy Doxy, who is a channel member and a supporter, says, what would cause a pink foam that they talked about Tammy having? She's referring to her daughter. Her own flesh and blood went on national television and said, my mom was on the floor and not in the bed, like my dad said, and she was a pink frothy foam was coming from her mouth. Barbara, I'll let you handle that.
Yeah, that's the evidence of respiratory failure, slow respiratory failure. And that generally happens with barbiturates and opiates. So in our last discussion, I had addressed that issue of the foam, saying that I was suspicious that she was given some opiates or some other overdose, because that slows the heart down, slows the breathing, fluid starts to fill the lungs, and just that slow bit of the fluid and the breathing results in a shaving cream like foam. It's tinged pink from blood in the lungs. So that's probably that. Someone else mentioned poison in the hair follicles, and that's for long-term poisoning. You have to be getting that over a period of weeks, even months, to find poison in the hair, since it grows so slowly, about an inch a month, I think.
I wanted to ask you, Barbara, because Alex Cox, it is said that he, somebody, obviously he died. He had some type of coronary, or I think it was blood clots in his lungs. That's what it was. I read it today. Tammy, Lori and Chad were both in Hawaii. There's a picture of them on the beach with he's got like a little guitar and they're playing and they got the leis around their white outfits and they're having a great time. Both of their kids have already been murdered. His wife has been murdered. Her fifth husband has been murdered, so on and so forth. And they are partying it up in Hawaii, and her brother mysteriously has the blood clots in his lungs. Is there a possibility, and this was asked on my website, that they could have slowly poisoned him and took off to make it look like, hey, we weren't here and he died. We were in Hawaii. What do you think about that? Is there a possibility that could have been introduced and, this was just be guesswork?
Yeah, I don't really know. I really don't. I can't think of any mechanism for developing, to intentionally cause someone to develop blood clots in their lungs, pulmonary emboli, which are painful and deadly. Those generally come from injuries to the calf muscles, to the legs, or clotting disorders.
Right.
So I bet I'll think of something in the middle of the night tonight, a way to do that. But for now, no, can't think of it.
Here's another gory question for you, Barbara. Is it true if you take a needle and just shoot air into the main veins, you can kill someone with a bubble?
Theoretically, it should work, but it doesn't really. The gas, the bubble, oxygen bubble or air bubble, breaks up pretty quickly into a foam in the veins. It could, if you had a big enough, 50 cc syringe chock full of air, it could cause some problems like a stroke. But again, we haven't really seen that happen in any demonstrable way. So, but theoretically, it could.
Okay.
Just haven't seen it.
Thank you, Barbara. Snow Bunny, don't get any funny ideas. Thank you for that question. Our next question comes in from Bam Girl, $5 super chat from Texas. Could I don't even know how to pronounce that. Malachite?
Malachite.
Yeah, thank you. Malachite poisoning be detected? Question mark. Lori brought a malachite ring before Tammy died. Ground up malachite? Question mark. I'm not even sure.
Interesting. I've never heard of that. I mean, I've certainly heard of malachite, and it's I believe it's a stone. It's and therefore natural. So probably not. But there's probably something I don't know about malachite that maybe Bama Girl from Texas knows.
Right. There you go. Well, hopefully she keeps that under wraps. I don't want that on my death certificate or report. Bill, what type of obstacles does the prosecution have going forward in this particular charges, the murder first degree and also the conspiracy to commit? What type of evidence are they looking to put forward, and just talk a little bit about that, because everybody.
Well, look, it's a massive undertaking putting a case and prosecuting a case like this, because there's so many different types of evidence. There's the physical evidence, there's the electronic evidence, the computers, there's the cell phone evidence, and of course, a lot of the circumstantial evidence that we talked about. That a lot of people that follow real crime shows or true crime shows, they don't understand how strong circumstantial evidence can be. And when you pile it all up and then introduce also motive, but presenting this case is no easy undertaking, because there's investigators from the FBI, from the local police, probably from the state. And as long as they put together a methodical case that makes sense to the jury and cuts all the holes in it you don't want the defense to have the holes to show that there's doubt. You got to make sure you present a clear and concise case and present the evidence so that everyone can understand it. And that's what the prosecution is up against. But I think they've done a great job so far, and there's no reason to believe that once they start this case, they're obviously taking their time. They still haven't released the autopsy results to the defense, because they'll probably do that on day one of the trial. And what will happen on day one of the trial? The defense will say, we need a couple of months to go over this evidence. So they'll ask for a couple of weeks or a month recess so they can present a defense for the autopsy results.
Yeah, unfortunately, as we know from being in the profession a long time, none of this stuff happens quickly. Judges always come late. Defense attorneys always try to put a snafu and a speed bump, if you will. The process of selecting a fair and impartial jury is going to be also difficult, but not impossible. There's many other jurisdictions where we won't get into mentioning these things, but we all know about certain high-end trials that were commenced here in the United States recently, and they were able to get a jury of their peers assembled. So if they ask for a change of venue, I think the judge here is going to tell them, hey, listen, we can get this done. So I don't think a change of venue is going to happen. I think it's going to be tried right there in that jurisdiction. And like you said, these things have to all be in place for the wheels of justice to smoothly move. And what we look for is, at the end of the day, for a guilty verdict and these two to be locked in a cage for the rest of their lives where they belong. These two are sick, evil animals. And animal is not even a fair word. These are monsters. Anybody that got in their way of their extreme beliefs, and I believe strongly that extreme religious beliefs and mental illness played a big part in both of these. I haven't even started to dive into Chad Daybell's books, but I'm going to, and I will do a specified live stream specific to just his beliefs and his books. And some people might not want to sit through that, but I think it's important that we understand the the way that this guy operated. He's a real sicko. So let me say thank you for that $25 super chat from K. Schwendit. I might have screwed that one up. Barbara, can you take that? Because there's a lot of big words in there, and I don't want to screw it up.
Sure. Asapromazine, would it be detected in an autopsy as a veterinary medication? Yes, it would, because it's an anesthetic type or a hypnotic rather. So that could cause that slowing of respiration. Another very interesting statement just came in from Wendy Grimstead that malachite and chrysocolla dust is quite toxic, up to 70% copper oxide, and shouldn't be breathed, ingested, or etc. Very interesting. Thank you, Wendy. That's what I love about this show. I'm learning too. And that, so copper oxide would be detected. That's a heavy metal, and it would be detected in toxicology.
Wow. So we learn something new all the time here. And thank you for the users and all of the watchers here, the people who subscribe to this this platform and this channel. I appreciate it. And that brings me to my next point. If you're not yet subscribed to Police Off the Cuff, this is my good friend Bill Cannon here. He has a true crime YouTube channel. I will link it right down below. And all of Barbara Butcher's social media, even though she's not a social media maven, she has a book that is going to be coming out. Barbara, do you want to talk about your book that you're working on through Simon & Schuster? I know the people will love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of writing a book about my many cases in New York City, and I'm very excited about it. It's a view into what it's like to be a nice young woman in the middle of death, despair, and destruction.
What is that book called?
It's called, right now it's tentatively called Only the Dead Know. And it should be coming out early next year or middle next year. Yeah, it's going to be a little while yet.
Barbara, before that book comes out, I hope we can do a promotion of it here. I would be honored to do that. We have over 1,375 people watching this live stream right now. And I hope that you guys will all come back for Barbara Butcher's book release. And, you know, go over to Bill Cannon on Police Off the Cuff. Don't leave now, but at the end of this, you will find his link down below where you can subscribe. He has fantastic guests. He had the police commissioner from Nassau County, to mention a few, you know, all kinds of stuff he is doing. It just blows my mind, the work that Bill Cannon is doing. He's bringing you guys unbelievable content in the true crime community, and also just bringing awareness about crime that is surging in New York City. So Bill Cannon has a great show, and I hope everyone subscribes to his channel. If you guys don't mind, just for another 2 to 5 minutes, we'll just look at some of the chat. If there's any questions, because I think we about covered it all. Let's see quickly. I'll just look and see. Thank you, Emily, for checking in. Hey, let's do a roll call. If you guys don't mind, this is something that I do, and it's a lot of fun. Let me know where you're watching, your city, your state, or your country. And if you're new, put new in the chat. I'd like to say hello to you if you are new here in the chat. So let's go. Bam. This is going to go flying now. Ireland, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Colorado. Hello, Dayton, Ohio. Hello, another person from Ireland. Good to see you, Cat H. Thank you, Melissa from Ireland. That's 3 in a row. Florida, Buffalo. Send some weather up here, please. Florida, it's been raining several days. Indiana, Bend, Oregon. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Hello, Ripley, Ohio. Thank you for joining. Hello from Portland, Oregon. I pray for you guys. Another Florida. Thank you, New Mexico. Good to see you. Ontario, Canada. Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Evansville, Indiana. Thank you, Chantel. Thank you for being here. Austin, Texas. Christina, Kathleen. Sounds like 2 first names. Good to see you. Thank you. Jay Gids. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Emily Flolita. That's not how it's pronounced. It's Flotilla. My very first channel member. She is special to me. Thank you, Emily. South Australia. Put another prawn on the Barbie and I'll be right over. Hello, Puerto Rico. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Topeka, Kansas. Thank you. New Fargo Islands. Thank you so much. Wow. I never heard of that one. Alpine, New Jersey. Nobody is new, for crying out loud. Where is all my new folks? 1,300 people and there's nobody new here? Wow. I got a lot of dedicated followers, I got to tell you. Thank you, Nat Man, for being here. Hello, Colorado. We like to refer to Colorado as Kilorado. Thank you. Thank you for joining. Stay safe over there in Colorado. Hello from new. Sally is new. Thank you. Connecting with the light is new. See, I have to pull it out of everybody. I got a lot of new people. Message D, thank you for the $10 super chat. My guests are like, DutyRon, how much longer do I have to listen to this crap? Scotland. Thank you. I'm sorry. This is part of my show. This is what I do. This is why people come back, and this is why we have 1,300 people watching. Thank you, guys. That was a great roll call, and I appreciate that. So no really particular questions. We do have quite a bit of ways to go here in this case. We want to see justice as law enforcement professionals, as professionals on the forensic side. We work together to bring justice and bring evil to justice. And there's so much evil out there. We hear about children being killed. We hear about people mutilating other human beings. This is not what's supposed to happen. But when we are home, sitting in our homes, the men and women of law enforcement, the men and women in the forensics community, the coroners, the medical examiners, the people who conduct these autopsies and do this laboratory work, they are an intricate part of the criminal justice system and the legal system. So we give thanks and praise to all of the folks who do these jobs. These are not easy jobs to do day in and day out. So I tip my cap to my guests, to all of my law enforcement professionals across the country. Make sure you support your local law enforcement and your military. It's very important that we give thanks and praise to the people who put their lives on the line day in and day out for complete strangers. So I want to say thank you to my law enforcement followers and friends. Pete Pranzo, great to see you. Harlem Raiders is in the building. Good to see you, Uncle Pete. Thank you for joining. So yeah, that's about all I have to say. Barbara, any parting words? I know you're going. You're leaving. Well, you're leaving New York in a little while. So, any parting words for the audience? I know that everyone loves you, Barbara.
Oh, you're sweet. Keep reading, keep following this case, and our collective will make sure that justice is done. You're all part of the community, and community is what gets things done. So thank you for your support over the years.
Excellent. Bill, over to you.
Well, just know that good always triumphs over evil, and you're going to see good triumph over evil in this case too.
I agree. Message agreed, my friend. A $4.99 super chat comes in from Carolina Girl, good friend of mine. Thank you, Carolina. Any experience with blue-ringed octopus poisoning, venom, which can result in nausea, respiratory arrest, failure, paralysis, blindness, and death? I don't ever want to see any of that.
No. And that's why it's not a good poison. It's because there are so many symptoms, and they're violent, and they're very apparent. That person's sick. So it's not a great poison.
Yeah. That sounds evil, that poisoning. And like you said, it wouldn't be a preference of a criminal, because they don't want to be detected, as we saw Chad and Lori Daybell. They did the best that they could to try to get rid of all of the things and all the people that they killed, allegedly. Thank you, Sergeant Melinda, for the $100 PayPal. Thank you so much for that. I greatly appreciated that. The donation, that will be paid forward to another cause that I support. So thank you for that. MC's audio comes in. Mike, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Got to catch the replay. I was late. Damn it. Peggy Williams, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Ground Melachite is deadly when inhaled. Andy Crayons coming in again with the $2 super chat. For DutyRon, get better at the bleeping button. You go yourself. All right. She's my friend. Thank you, Andy. I could say that with her because we know each other pretty well. Andy, you. Anyways, let's see. Anything else coming in? All right, guys. Listen, as I always like to end these live streams, we're on. I promised Barbara 38 minutes. I went 10 minutes over. That is, her rate is $1,268 per hour. So I owe her a lot of cash. Thank you to my guests again. Much love and respect to you guys. As I always end these, God bless the world. God bless the United States of America. God bless each and every one of us here in the chat and all victims of crime and their families throughout the globe. Thank you from New York, and good night. Thank you, guys.